I like your style, Dasha. Just like write your comments in a heading style, and then everyone's gonna read them.
It's completely unintentional. I'm sorry.
All right, I see Andre has the first points. Andre, do you want to speak up?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So since I'm a permanent part of the team and I've been around a while, I would like to become a maintainer of both VS Code and LSP repositories. So do we have a process around that, or what should I do, basically?
It's been self-elected historically, so you pretty much became maintainer just then. There is just no merge request in the team data to support it, but you create one. I think we are all happy to have you as a maintainer.
Yep, I would say the same thing, especially after all the security stuff. So
Cool, sounds good. Then I will create an MR to gitlab.com.
Feel free to assign me as a reviewer. Well, I think myself or Maverick or Andre. I think all three of us
Yep,
have
I will. You helped me last time, so I have a good experience.
Indeed. And congratulations on becoming a maintainer already.
Thanks.
Pre-congratulations.
It's an honor.
Okay, Amy, you're up next.
All right. So this is actually more for Dasha than anyone else. So the three repos that have the smaller doc sets, I've copied all of the user-facing information into the GitLab repo. I'm starting the cleanup process to make the READMEs more generic. Dasha merged the one for JetBrains yesterday. I have the one for Visual Studio going locally, but I have, I don't know, meetings. And so I'm talking instead of typing. And then I'll do NeoVim after that. VS Code needs substantive attention on my part, and I want to get these first three done and over with so that I can then focus on VS Code. And that's where we stand. Dasha can merge the MRs for me so I don't have to bother anybody else. And that's all I have. Speaking of VS Code, Thomas.
Yeah, I'm just I'm reading Aaron's comment on my comment, and I probably don't have it set up now. Damn it! It's not gonna. The hearts are not gonna be everywhere, but I definitely feel them. That's amazing, Aaron. You are amazing. Yeah, yes, that. Anyway, I'm gonna just go with the much less amazing comment of talking about the epic that I created about self troubleshooting, which contains a mixed bag of issues, mainly for the language server and VS Code extension, with like ideas how we could help give our users and customers more context when something isn't working. And pretty much the TLDR of it would be, let's try to find out all the conditions necessary for succeeding in some action or command and validate them at the start. If something doesn't work out, let's leave a big message saying in logs saying what are all the conditions that are and aren't met. And yeah, that's all. You can have a look at the epic. Aaron, please take it away.
For anybody who hasn't seen Thomas's demo, it is amazing. I'm in love with it. There's like three small POCs, and I want all of it merged tomorrow. So I can't wait to see that. Yeah, on that note, just certificate settings come up now and again. I think sometimes we'll have an engineer join a call. So recently I joined another call. I helped unblock some customers using JetBrains. We now have that same customer added more evaluators on their team. So there's engineers that were having trouble initially setting up their certificate settings within VS Code. they know the workaround. Our solutions architects are able to guide them through the workaround. But every time it's like small paper cuts every time, and every single user has to do it, even if they know. And so if they're unlucky and they don't read like whatever the setup guide is or the setup docs, they don't have like one central guide to say this is what to do to set up your like IDE. And even if we did have that, not everybody's going to read the docs. Myself, I try to go through the docs now and again, and I see sometimes they get out of date, and I try to do like small fixes. But what I would love is if we added, and Tristan and I were pairing on this last night, or I guess his morning, but Tristan and I were just going over different ways for VS Code, JetBrains, and Language Server. So if we have like events in Language Server triggered based on some of the sort of health checks that Thomas discussed in his epic, we could essentially show a pop-up with the notifications to the user, which then will guide them to documentation. And then that will help them discover the documentation so they don't have to worry about the findability of that anymore. Because right now we have the documentation and users can use that to guide themselves through it once they know it exists. Right now it's pretty hard for users to find the docs in some cases because it was sort of disparate in different areas. And then as well as that is just giving the ability to fix things. Jean-Gabriel and Bogdan and I paired a lot on a previous customer issue. And so with JetBrains now, it's fantastic. Jean-Gabriel and Bogdan did a great job of actually having it. So if you get an issue with the certificate error, it'll actually prompt you saying, hey, this is the certificate that's attached to the server. Did you mean to accept this? Is this? It looks like it's a custom certificate. And we added custom certificate documentation for JetBrains. So now users can see, okay, what is a custom certificate? Oh, this might be related to my proxy settings or my whatever like Zscaler or whatever proxy my company, my corporate environments is in place that's causing my machine to have issues to connect to like my GitLab instance. And so that is great. I want that experience inside of VS Code as well. And on top of that, because we have a workaround that we know of and users are able to use this workaround successfully, I think we need to look at creating documentation and guidance around having our IDE settings. So you can commit the .idea folder for JetBrains. You can commit the .vs code settings.json for VS Code. And once you do that, you're sharing those IDE settings across different workstations. So instead of one users having to do it every single time, if you clone a project which says, hey, this instance has a custom certificate settings, it will then, to anybody who clones a project, it'll work for them immediately. And that's a massive improvement over like right now, users are having to go to their user settings is what we show them in the docs, and then adding it to the user settings. That's like a small paper cut every single time. Whereas if we give them like, hey, if you set up your project this way, they don't have to worry about that. So there's lots more too. I'll probably create an epic based on Tristan and I's conversation because there's lots of good ideas that came from that, and sort of a lot of it was based off Thomas's epic as well. So that's my ramble. Thanks all.
I think just to add to that, I think it's I always lean into like, let's start with documentation. And I think that's been our path forward, as in like we've had documentation, but then it's like now we're at a point where the documentation doesn't cover all the cases. So we're like, what's the additional documentation / user notifications we can do? And I know that I'm just a ball of sun at this point. But it's, yeah, I guess it's more of like, I'd like to be mindful of how much documentation to add versus how much user interference we give. Just kind of like a fine-tuned point. So Taylor, I don't know if you can help with that as well, as in, I don't want to bombard with like, hey, here's all the things. But at the same time, how do we provide that guidance?
Yeah, I think UX can help out here for sure with trying to kind of provide that user experience that will actually be helpful. There's going to be a lot going on, but I do love the idea of like event-driven assistance because, yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to expose the documentation when it's needed.
Agreed.
I think it would be fantastic if we took those recent user guides that we had and we add in and like just a little snippet, like a bullet point saying, hey, if you have custom certificates, this is what you can do. And then in the future, we can drive that based on the health checks Thomas sort of talked about in the epic. Or if we have a health check, we can say enable this field on the guide, user guide.
Okay, so next bit, I think that a combination of something that works on the UX side, some sort of interactivity, along with strong documentation, like a blend of the things will work. It looks like it's working well in JetBrains, but it would be great to get this across all extensions where there are pop-ups or prompts that send you to somewhere that allows you and assists you in self-serving yourself. So a combination of what we've done on the JetBrains side and also obviously documentation, which I think Thomas has laid out, I think would be a great solution. So that's it for me. I've only got 2 updates. Milestone 17.4. We're hitting our final stretch. So please make sure that you're adding status updates and let us know if you have any blockers that will prevent you from being able to get your issues to the finish line. And the last one is PTO updates. We're beginning milestone planning now. I've put the dates for the milestone in there. So please submit your PTO so that we can make sure that we're planning for capacity at the right level. And over to you, Dasha.
I see Aaron typing. What I was thinking through is, do we want a preview version or can we have a preview version of our VS Code and Visual Studio extensions as we do with JetBrains? So I don't want to encourage for alpha to be a testing ground, but it has worked and it works really well for us, especially if there's something that is user facing that we want to validate. It has worked really well. And I wonder if there's one, how can we make that, if the preview is available, how can we make it more accessible? And if that's something we want to do as a team.
There is for VS Code extension, I think there is like some kind of nightly stream that is built into the marketplace. I think. If not, I definitely saw extensions doing like a nightly version of that is like a separate extension, but maybe there is even like a nightly build. Either way, it would really play nicely with what we discussed in the maintainer meeting a couple days ago when we talked about automatically releasing the language server. But when you release the language server, it creates 0.5 gigabyte of binaries. And so if we are automatically releasing it, we would probably want to clean up the automated releases after like a month or something. So the nightly VS Code extension releases would be perfect for it, because like if we had the main like production releases, those might be dependent on like a proper language server release, but everything else could be on the automated releases. So I think that would work well. I don't know how much effort it is, but it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think definitely works, worth investigating. And I also have seen like preview channels in other extensions, so there has to be a way.
And the Visual Studio doesn't have any pre-release or nightly channels, so we'll have to like either publish them on in our repository or create like a special version label for this version so users can see that it's beta or alpha or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me do this. I'll add just a spike probably to Visual Studio and VS Code pieces just to say, hey, what would this look like? And is this actually worth it? And then we can understand the level of effort and whether it's something we want to pursue. Works.
All right, Thomas, it looks like you're read only, but if you want to voice it, awesome. But it looks like we're almost done or done. Post call. Okay. So anything else from anyone else before we turn off the recording? All right, we can turn it off.